Hello YouTube, this is Capricious Black Box. I'm going to continue on in my little mini-series here about the presuppositional apologetic argument of Seitan, Brigg, and Kate. Tonight I'll speak a little bit about the second prong and his two-pronged approach. The first prong, for a quick review, just being to disarm the unbeliever by getting them to admit that they might be wrong about some things. In fact, much further, getting them to admit that they could be wrong about everything they claim to know. Which is pretty disarming if you're going to go that far, and I think it's an unfortunate thing for the unbelievers to admit, out of, I think, an attempt at honesty, to admit such a thing, because it really, they're definitely both hands tied behind their back from that point on in the argument, and a lot of times Sai will even just leave the argument at that point. But the second prong, of course, this is a contest. Really, this is a contest of seeing who can claim absolute knowledge first, and who, he who does it wins. Of course, this is Sai's argument, so a lot of unsuspecting people don't realize that they're being that they're falling into a little bit of a shell game. And so the second prong, of course, is to say, I have absolute knowledge, therefore I get to decide what's what's real and what's not. And how they do that is they'll levy the question: could an all-powerful, all-knowing God reveal things to us such that we could know them for certain? And of course, anyone who's honest with themselves would say, well, yes, if that being did exist, it could probably do that, assuming that it created us and everything else. And so then it will just say, well, that's what happened. I've had this revelation. Now, knowing things, having someone reveal things to you such that they could be certain, is a little different from just thinking you know things for certain. A lot of people believe a lot of things for certain, with absolute certainty. Really, certainty is a state of mind, incorrectly or falsely. And so, the two things don't equate. Yes, an all-powerful God could reveal things such that you know them for certain, but knowing things for certain does not equate truth. You could be wrong about the things you believe you know for certain. So, the other thing that I find interesting, and nobody seems to really contest him that much on, is where this revelation comes from. I watched the Magic Sandwich Show series on YouTube here with Concordance and Sai and Eric Hovind and Thunderfoot, and somebody asked him at that point, well, where is this revelation coming from? Where do you get this revelation? And I found the answer to be really vague, of course, and nobody followed up on it, which I had me screaming at the computer. And he said, what Sai said was, well, we get this revelation from a lot of different sources, but one of which would be Scripture. And I thought, Scripture? I mean, I know that every apologist is going to say, no, there's no such thing as contradictions or issues in the Bible. There's no scientific, issues, falsehoods or anything like that in there. But anybody who's really honest and reads the Bible it's chalk, right? It's chock full of contradictions. So how that could somehow reveal things to you such that you could know them for certain, I'm not sure. To be fair, I expected some sort of claim of a divine revelation, like a dream visitation, or a bush that's on fire, talking snake perhaps. Not that this would hold any sway necessarily with me, but at least it would be a claim of a little more substance than Scripture. At any rate, I think that's where this argument falls down, the most. I mentioned the toolbox before in reasoning. Really, they're still using their reasoning as well, but there's an additional claim on top, and of course it's a wow, really lost my marbles there. What I was going to say is it's a claim with special pleading, right? So and it's amazing to me how far most of the people that he's talking to let Sai get away with this special pleading. They'll say it a little bit, but he really holds people's feet to the fire midway through the conversation when they start making knowledge claims. And he'll say, how do you know that? You've already said you could be wrong about everything. You are disregarded. You're finished, right? And a couple of things just to sum up here. Earlier I said that the atheist or the non-believer are admitting that they could be wrong about everything they claim to know. It's an attempt to be honest. I don't think they're actually admitting it, and I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't admit things if they're true. You know, philosophically, if we're to reach any kind of understanding, we have to be honest with each other. I think it's an attempt to be honest, but it's not all that accurate. I mean, the unbeliever doesn't actually believe that, right? They're just, you know, they're sort of, like I've said before, they're going to the brain in a vat argument. They're saying, well, I could be wrong. I could be in a vat. I could be part of the matrix, but they don't actually believe that. And of course, Psi doesn't believe that either. So I think it's a little more honest to say that that's not accurate. And yes, I could be wrong about some things. I could be wrong about many things potentially, but that doesn't mean I don't have knowledge. And as to the reasoning argument, using your reasoning to justify your reasoning, see part 1 of this little series. And then, of course, the other thing is, again, they're asking for special pleading here. They're saying, hey, I could have things revealed to me by revelation, but of course, again, believing you have had things revealed to you divinely doesn't mean that you have. And absent some discussion with a bush that's on fire or a snake or something else, I find it a little bit odd that that they didn't at least fabricate something along those lines, because to say scripture and not give any concrete, they didn't point anybody to any specific verses or anything. I know that there's verses that that declare the authenticity of the Bible as being divinely inspired and that sort of thing, but I mean, of course, there's many literary, blah blah blah. There's many places you could go to be told things for certain that are actually false. So I can think of a bunch of advertising from Coca-Cola and cigarettes from the 1950s, for instance. At any rate, thanks for watching. I may make another video. We'll see how it goes. I've had like 11 views on my first one, so I'm really talking to myself, but for what it's worth, I'm having some fun. So peace and have a good evening.